In an industry stuffed with marketing bullshit, empty promises, and shiny-suited liars, one woman's had enough. She knows what it's like to have the wrong clients, no money, and no time for fun. But she also knows how to fix it. And on the Business for Superheroes show, she promises to tell the down and dirty truth about business, sales, and running away with the circus. Here's your host, Vicky Fraser.
Hello and welcome to the Business for Superheroes show. I'm Vicky Fraser and this is my husband Joe and he's grumpy.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm not grumpy.
You are grumpy.
You're grumpy.
We're both a bit hot and bothered and hungry. But we have gin and tonic. Cheers.
It's going to get better from here on in.
Yes. Cheers. Tell the listeners what we're listening to. No, drinking.
We're drinking Sipsmith gin and Schweppes tonic with a bit of lemon in it. Mostly drinking the Sipsmith because it finishes off a bottle, which leaves more room in the
gin. Yes. So, that's what we're doing. I've been swanning around all day in shorts and a bikini top because it's been about 30,000 degrees here.
And I have been making a Welsh car factory work.
Well done. I've mowed the lawn.
I have not.
It's been cool. And then we went for a walk when we got home around our huge tract of land. And we took Whiskey the cat for a walk, or rather she came with us.
Yeah,
she's really funny. She doesn't really roam very far on her own, but when we go for a walk, she comes with us. And then if she gets out of sight of us, she bellows with a noise like you've never heard.
She just yowls from behind the nearest tree.
Yeah, it's like, I can't see you anymore. And we're like, Whiskey, we're only here. And then she gallops towards us and it's really cute.
She's a good cat.
She's a good cat. So this week we are following on with the charisma theme.
Right.
As we have been doing for the past couple of weeks.
Okie dokie.
Even though there was no podcast last week. Apologies for that, listeners.
Oh, what happened?
I was away. And just things to do.
We didn't have one in the bag.
Didn't have one in the bag. We are following on the charisma theme. And this week we are talking about body language.
Right.
Let your whole body talk, as RuPaul Charles would say. Cover girl.
Always with the RuPaul.
Put some bass in your walk. Cover girl. Let your whole body talk.
Nice.
And what? Okay. So, Joe, have you ever noticed how some people slink into a room unnoticed and other people command your attention from the moment they walk through the door?
Can I just say, if anybody would like more singing in this podcast, they should email Vicky. Right.
Anyway, Joe, have you ever noticed how some people slink into a room unnoticed, but others command your attention from the moment they walk through a door?
Yes. Yes, I guess I have. Yeah.
Not in a kind of like slamming into a room in a big I am look at me way, but just more in a, wearing their self-confidence like a cape.
Yes.
Yeah? You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Yeah. Some people have a real, knack of owning their space, I think, and being perfectly comfortable wherever they are, kind of moving around in a bubble of their own confident energy. Some people do that and you notice them, not because they're being loud or anything, but just because they've got charisma, I guess, a presence. Yeah.
It's a thing, isn't it? It's a skill. It's a good skill.
It is a good skill. And I think it's a skill that we're starting to do. You could probably do all sorts of really interesting evolutionary studies about dominance and all that kind of thing. But it kind of goes back to, for millions of years, basically, our ancestors roamed the earth with, successfully not dying, which was quite a feat because it was very dangerous.
Breeding before they died.
Yeah, or at least our ancestors managed to. I was like, have you ever thought how awesome it is that we are here? Every single one of our ancestors, right back to like the primal puddle of ooze, has had to successfully stay alive long enough to breed, resulting in you.
Well, that's the thing with it. Is that
awesome?
Is that luck, or would you just have a different set of ancestors if one of them hadn't?
Well, it wouldn't be you, though, would it? It wouldn't be the same genetic makeup as you. It wouldn't be the you that is sitting here now.
Well, I mean, I think once you, if you're talking all the way back to the primordial goo, I'm not sure
That's not quite
much.
as far back for you, is it?
I don't think there's was there much genetic diversity amongst the goo? Would they make much difference if my 1,000 times grandparent was somebody else?
Well, maybe not in the goo, but I don't know. Probably, yeah.
Any geneticists out there?
It's chaos theory, isn't it? A butterfly flaps its wings over here and your eyebrow falls off over there. Have you got no romance in your soul? No. Have you got a soul?
No. Right. Okay. So some people do this. Right. With millions of years.
Yeah.
People successfully survived,
but without words or language. Like even our fairly recent ancestors, didn't have language or speech. It's pretty recent development for humans. Scientists reckon at the moment about 100,000 years ago is when we started to develop language. So until then, it was all like facial expressions and hitting people on the head with a branch. I'm really hungry.
I was just communicating via the medium of facial expressions there, which is not the best way to entertain anybody in a podcast.
It's not, no. But, until fairly recently, human beings did not have speech and language. And so we just... Are you still doing it? You're freaking me out. And so we just communicated with our facial expressions and our body language. And that means that a lot of our communication is still done with body language and facial expressions.
Mm-hmm.
At least as much as with speech, and sometimes more, I think.
See, I find that really difficult to accept. I find it really difficult to accept.
Why?
Because I have no idea how anybody would convey, even a small amount of Shakespeare via body language. I mean, we're into proper interpretive dance craziness, aren't we? I mean,
No. I'm talking about basic communication and, communication of feelings and warnings and the stuff that keeps you alive. But even, okay, so have you here's an example. When you get an email from somebody, and I'm looking at your eyeballs now, and I can tell that you're skeptical and you're not accepting this because of your facial expression, which I will come on to in a moment. But when you get an email from somebody and you're like, oh my God, that's really arsey. Why are they speaking to me like that? And it's not arsey at all. It's just that you can't see the facial expression. It's why I really don't like talking to people on the phone, because I can't see their face. And I find it very difficult to tell from their tone of voice and, sometimes what they're saying. I'm like, well, I don't know if you're taking the mick. I don't know if you're cross. And I really struggle with that, being able to see somebody's face.
We've had a chap at work has had a long email chain falling out with an engineer at one of our customers because of that. As soon they kind of disagreed over email and decided they really didn't like each other for quite a long time. And then when they got together at the same place at the same time, they had a 10-second conversation and was like, oh, right, yeah, okay, fine, yeah, cool. And it was all just sorted out.
Exactly. So are you still going to stand there and tell me that you don't accept that an awful lot of communication is non-verbal?
No, there is an awful lot of communication, but people do this kind of like, oh yeah, 90% of communication is non-verbal. And it's like...
Did I say 90%?
Whatever the percentage is. I mean, these guys
were
having a complicated technical discussion about PLC programs on a production line. You couldn't do that with wiggling your eyebrows.
No, of course you couldn't, but a lot of the nuance and a lot of that, pain and stress, probably quite a lot of stress, could have been solved if they'd been able to look at each other instead of having this email conversation where they both took offence at each other for no reason at all, other than that they couldn't see each other's faces. I did not mention any percentages. I don't know how much communication is made up by verbal or non-verbal, but I do know it's a lot, and I know that it's very important. And you know that as well, because you just sat there and told me a story.
Yeah, but in terms of bandwidth, I don't think it's got much.
Right, okay, well, you're wrong and I'm right, and we'll just carry on. Okay, so have you... But that's the reason why emoticons are so popular.
I'm folding my arms and scowling.
He's folding his arms. He's not scowling, he's making a silly face. But that's why emoticons are so popular. And that's... And, people get really pissed off at it. It's like, oh, you don't use emoticons in speech. Actually, they're quite a useful thing. If you are worried how somebody's going to take something in an email, it's not a bad idea to put a smiley face at the end of it. If you think it might save an argument later. It's like, it just diffuses, this, I know this can, it says to the person that you're writing to, I know this could come across a little bit arsey, and that's not how I mean it. And it immediately diffuses that. And, there are people who will argue, well, there are times and places to use emoticons, and I would probably agree with that. But, for most people, I can't think of many times when it would be totally inappropriate to use an emoticon if you're really that worried that somebody's going to take it the wrong way. So, and as an aside, did you know when the first emoticon was invented?
The telegraph. I'm going to go with whoever it was who invented the telegraph machine. I don't know. I'm making it up.
I thought you might have been. You sounded really convincing, and you looked really convincing for a moment, and that's a good lesson for the
Convincing
listeners.
face.
Convincing face, yeah.
I've actually been to Telegraph Island, you know.
Have you?
It's in, is it the Straits of Hormuz? The Gulf.
The Straits of Hummus.
Hormuz. In the Gulf, you know where
hungry.
the dog ear of Africa gets a bit narrow?
Yes.
That shipping lane. So a man is on one side of that. There's a bit of a man on one side
You've
of that.
been there?
Yeah. And it's got a little island. And it's the origin of the phrase going around the bend.
Is it?
Because it was a telegraph relay station. Because obviously you can't just, have one bit of wire that goes from, London to Moscow or
yeah.
wherever you're going to in that
It's
direction.
like a clack station for Terry Pratchett fans.
Clack station, yeah. So you had these little stations, and on Telegraph Island, they had a little concrete box where a chap listened to incoming signals and just bounced them out the door, going
That's ace.
But it was hot and it was barren and there was nothing there, and basically it was on the bend of this field.
Were you sent there as a punishment?
It was nice.
Okay, cool.
I mean, I wouldn't want to live there, but
So that was a cool story, and I'm not being cool story bro.
Cool story,
that was a cool story, but we have limited time, so I'm going to move on. But the first emoticon I think I'm pretty sure was in 1982.
What?
No, I think it was, and I'm
up.
just going to open the.
Surely
Internet.
typesetters have been doing that kind of thing before then.
33 years or 33. No, that's like 36 years ago. It was Carnegie Mellon professor. I don't know why I had trouble with that word. Dr. Scott Fahlman invented the first emoticon, which was the humble smiley. I propose that the following character sequence for joke markers: : parenthesis. Parenthesis. I'm having issues with my words. Read it sideways. Actually, it's probably more economical to mark things that are not jokes given current trends. For this, use : open bracket. So yeah, that was every September 19th, Fellman hands out smiley face cookies at the Carnegie Mellon campus in Pittsburgh.
Well, I'm sure he's very pleased with himself.
You should be, because I think that's quite cool. But some people think that the first emoticon may have appeared in 1648.
Well, there you go.
Well, there you go. And it was in a poem by a chap called Robert Herrick, and the poem was called To Fortune, and it goes: tumble me down and I will sit upon my ruins, brackets smiling yet, smiley face. Only the smiley face is a colon and a close bracket, and back in 1648, people just used to scatter punctuation willy-nilly, and I suspect it was just a typo. And
he can't spell necessity.
Well,
a couple of lines later.
He can spell necessity. It's just that the spelling has changed since, 1648.
Okay. Well, that's nice.
Yeah, so that was...
So basically I was closer than you with my guess on telegraphs.
Well, maybe.
1648, that's way too soon for telegraphs.
I don't claim I don't think it is an emoticon. I think that somebody is just wishful thinking about it being an emoticon.
No, because he put it after the word smiling yet.
Well, he did put it after the word smiling yet. So, but who nobody will ever know unless somebody figures out a way to resurrect, dead people and ask them questions.
Or time travel.
More
likely.
Yeah. Anyway.
That was a derail.
That was a derail, but it was an interesting one. So, my point is that everybody around you, using your facial expressions, everybody around you will know instantly if you've just eaten something disgusting by your facial expression, or if you've just smelled a bad smell because of your facial expression. And your disgust will show on your face. Disgust is a very strong emotion, and it shows on your face.
Mm-hmm.
And you know this. I should point out here that quite often Joe will nudge me if I'm obviously thinking something negative about somebody, because I cannot school my face, and so my face will just twist into this expression of disgust while I'm listening to someone or looking at someone.
Basically, if you're talking to Vicky and I elbow her in the ribs, it probably means she thinks you're an idiot.
That's not true. No, that I think that perhaps something idiotic is being said.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
More to the point, I've noticed that I think Vicky thinks you're an idiot.
Right, anyway. So here's a few little tips that people might find useful. If you don't understand something, then your caruncle, which is the little pink fleshy bit in the inside corner of your eye, will disappear like this. You see?
If you what? If you don't
If
understand...
you don't understand something. So if you're explaining something to somebody and like you're doing right now, Joe, for the benefit of the listeners, and you narrow your eyes, but not like in a really squinty way. It's
if ever we were going to video the podcast, this was the one. This was the one we should have done.
I tell you what, we should do a replay of this podcast after my book is out, and we'll do it with actions and videos and things. But I've got my glasses on right now, and I'm not putting that on.
Well, no, we could reuse the audio. But just put some squinty faces on it.
Oh, we could act to it. That would be so much fun. Yes, let's do that. Yeah. Oh my God, that'd be hilarious.
That'd be a great idea.
Okay, so we're going to do that. You are full of good ideas. But yeah, if the inside corner of somebody's eye disappears, even just slightly while you're talking to them, then that probably means that they don't understand or don't agree with what you're saying to them. And it's a good prompt to say, do you want me to explain anything further? Or is there anything there that you didn't understand? Without kind of saying, I'm looking at your eyeballs and you're all squinty. That means that you don't understand me, because that's a bit weird. I've just freaked out. Okay, so...
Do people do this kind of thing live in the wild when they're like looking at people and doing stuff?
Yes, but it's not like really. It's not like squinting your eyes really obviously. It's a very tiny micro movement that's involuntary.
If I'm having a conversation with somebody, I mean, unless they're actually like, I don't know, growling and reaching for a pointy thing, then I don't really care what their face does most of the time. I really, do people monitor other people's eyeballs?
Well, if I'm teaching a group of people something, I want to know if they understand it or not. Quite often people won't put their hand up and say, I don't understand, because they don't want to look stupid. So for people who are teaching people something...
People who don't understand things aren't necessarily stupid.
I didn't say that. I said they don't want to look stupid. Most people will not put their hands up and say, I don't understand, because they think it makes them look stupid.
Okay.
And so if you're a teacher, if you're teaching somebody something, it's actually really important that you pay attention to their facial expression and body language, because if I'm teaching somebody something and they don't understand what I'm telling them, I want to know that so that I can explain it better. Does that not make sense to you?
It does, yes. I'm really impressed with people who do things like that whilst they are performing a task or doing something else. I find it quite impressive, because I can't do it.
It takes practice.
Yeah, maybe I just need to practice.
Yeah, just pay more attention to people.
I haven't got time for that.
Yes, you have. So another tell for people: if somebody asks you to do something that you don't want to do, quite often your chin will dip a little bit and your eyes will narrow. It's another unconscious expression of what you're feeling inside. So if you ask a favour of somebody and they really don't want to do it, then you'll be able to tell if you pay attention to that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then you can kind of retract your request, or if you're feeling particularly mean and masochistic, make them do it anyway. Don't know, really. Depends.
Depends on the relationship, really, doesn't it? If they're one of your head count, then you just need to get on with it.
So do not call your employees your head count.
They like it.
I don't think they do. Anyway, but all of this really is by way of saying that it's confidence, really. It's another expression of confidence and charisma. Because have you seen some people present or perform and they kind of look like they don't want to be there?
Oh God, yes.
And they look like they want to hide in a corner. Maybe they don't. But what does that make you think? Does it make you trust them?
Yeah, it means it makes you have less faith in what they're saying.
Less confidence. Yeah, I don't. It's like, well, if you really don't want to be there, okay. If you think about it, you can think they just don't like presenting or whatever. But actually, what most people will get is, I'm not confident in what I'm saying.
They're undermining their own story.
They are undermining
their own message.
Which is why it really pays to practice. If you've got a speech to make or a presentation to give, it really pays to practice it. Mm-hmm. Because even if you mess up, even if you don't get all your lines right or whatever, if you have that air of confidence and that air of, okay, even if I mess up, I don't care, I'm gonna carry on and fix it, mm-hmm. then that goes a long way to giving people confidence in what you're saying and doing. Really.
Yes, yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know, and it just got me thinking about, performances I've seen as well, like pole performances and, circus performances, and there's a marked difference between people who are incredibly compelling to watch and those who are almost just not going through the motions, because that takes away from the effort that goes into it. But
at the pole competition a couple of weeks ago, certainly in one of the categories, there were, and it was one of the sort of more beginner categories, there was one person who was having an amazing time, who loved it and was confident and doing their thing. They didn't do anything technically more difficult than anyone else, but they were so much more confident, and they won it by a country mile.
Yeah. And that's not to take away the courage of getting up there and performing
Absolutely
at
not.
all. But that was the difference between, you know, the people who are, and it's actually, like you say, it's got very little to do with talent and ability. It's actually to do with being compelling. And one of the notes that I always give to people when you know, when people are doing competitions or performances, they'll practice in front of a group, which they absolutely should at the studio. And one of my notes that I always give, because I got this from Dana when we were doing reflection, and Annie always gives this note as well, is look at your audience. You know, give real strong eye contact. Even if you can't actually see anybody, you need to look out at them, because what people do when they're not confident is they will like look at their hand, or they'll look down even.
Look at their shoes.
Yeah, they'll look down. But if you're in like a move on, say, a trapeze, and it's like a stretched out move and you've got your arms stretched out and you're looking down, it doesn't just break the line that you're making, like the physical shape that you're making. It also completely disconnects you from your audience.
Yeah, you're doing that thing up there and they're all sat down over here.
Yeah, and it's really important to bring your audience in. So the one thing that, you know, I always make sure I do, even if I'm worried that I'm going to mess up a move, is make real strong eye contact with the audience, because they'll never notice you mess up then, because you're drawing them into your performance and making them a part of it.
They're busy seeing you confident and enjoying yourself.
Yeah, and
almost
also,
regardless of what's happening.
It's very intimate as well. It's a very intimate thing to do. If somebody thinks that you're looking them directly in the eye, then they're gonna love you for that, because it's like you are giving them this gift of your performance.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same if you're presenting or doing a video or whatever you're doing for your business. If you can give people that really strong eye contact and make them feel a part of what you're doing, that's a really cool thing. And
But then how do you gauge? Because I've had, you know, when somebody's been on a sales course and they've been told to use your name many times, and they've been told to give you really strong eye contact, and they've been told to wear their shiny asbestos suit with their biggest cufflinks.
Yeah.
And you just think, oh God, this is awkward, because there's just too much eyeballs.
Yeah, you let them practice on you, but I know what you mean.
And yeah, there is a point beyond which you should not go.
There is. And do you know what? We're going to come to that next week, Joe.
Really?
Yeah, because next week we are going to go through my top 12 body language tips.
Okay.
And in it is exactly the right amount of eye contact to give. So if you want to know how to freak people out, tune in next week and I will tell you exactly how much eye contact is too much eye contact.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, because that was perfect timing, because we do not have time right now to go through the 12 top body language tips.
Okay.
So that's really cool. But yeah, I don't know. That's pretty much it.
Work on your self-confidence, and even if you don't feel particularly self-confident, I think you can watch other people's performances. Be they, you know, quite often people on like the TED videos are good speakers.
Yeah.
Even if they're talking about something you have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah.
They'll often be well prepared.
And they'll be
confident
compelling
speakers.
and enjoyable to watch.
Yeah.
That's the thing. If you can be enjoyable to watch, that's a big thing. You are at your most charismatic and convincing when the way your body moves aligns perfectly with what comes out of your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, and you know, it's kind of going back to that being uncomfortable thing. We've all seen people who are clearly uncomfortable saying the words that they're saying, and it's like they just look unhappy about it, and they shrink, and it's like they're silently shouting for somebody to please take them off the stage.
Yeah.
And so another top tip that I'm going to put out there this week is really think about the heart of the message that you want to get across. What is it that you want to say to people? How do you truly feel about it? How important is the message to you? And why do you think your listeners should care about it? Because once you've nailed that down, you can then talk about it in a real way. So even if you're nervous, your true feelings for what you're saying will still come through. Nerves are not a problem. It's not nerves. It's letting your nerves destroy everything else. Destroy the message and everything else. Yeah. People don't mind a little bit of nerves. It's when you let it take over and kind of, you know, turn you into a driveling wreck. So yeah, you know, nail down the basics of your message and really think about how important it is to you, and check that you actually believe what you're saying, because a lot of people just parrot stuff that they hear.
Yes.
And it's an alarming trend. It's the deluge of crap that we're all going to be drowned in, I think. It's like the content is king bullshit that is, you know, is sweeping the internet guru-ness lands.
Yes.
It's like, just as much content as possible. Doesn't matter if I believe it or even know what I'm talking about. Just get it out there.
Just publish stuff.
Yeah, just publish stuff, and it's just oh god, really. So yeah, in that deluge of crap, if you can be genuine and persuasive and really believe what you're talking about, you're going to stand out just for that. You will float on the top,
floating on the turds.
Thanks for that.
Deluge of crap,
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, there's a couple of other points just before we go. So when you're feeling down, or upset or depressed or whatever, you tend to round your shoulders and slump and look at the floor. But if you're happy, you hold your head high and sit straight and smile. It's like boobs out, chin up, smile kind of thing. And did you know that posture can influence your mood as well? It can go both ways. So if you smile, you feel better.
Yes.
It's been scientifically proven.
I have heard that, but there was again, I'm mentioning TED Talks for the second time. There was somebody who... and I don't know her name because I didn't know we were talking about this, but there was somebody who talked about power posing or something.
Oh, we're going to talk about her next week.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I mentioned her TED Talk. I've got it in my notes for next week.
Because it was a good TED Talk.
It is a good TED Talk. And I've got a caveat to that because the power posing is great, but I've got a caveat to it.
Quite a lot of people thought it was absolute fucking nonsense.
Well, that's part of my caveat. It's not... It can make you feel better. I think the way you stand will definitely influence the way you feel. If you're kind of standing like this, even just sitting up.
For the listener, that was a hunch.
Yeah, was it? But even if I'm just like, even if I've been spending all day in front of my computer and I'm feeling a bit knackered and stuff, and I'll be, you get more and more hunched as the day goes on.
Sure.
If I kind of give myself a little shake and sit up straight, I will instantly feel more energized.
Mm-hmm.
And if I feel sad, I will make a conscious effort to smile. I know that I'm gonna get some people being like, "Oh, you can't treat depression like that." I'm not talking about clinical depression. I'm talking about if you're feeling a little bit sad, even if you are clinically depressed, at least give it a try.
Yeah.
And speaking as someone who has been clinically depressed, I can say shit like that without getting handfuls of shit thrown at me. So, but yeah, I mean, body language influences how you feel. It goes both ways, and how you feel will influence your body language. So that's really important. And next week we're going to come back, and we are going to give you my.
You are going to give them, and
I'm going to give them, and Joe's going to argue with me about my top 12 body language tips.
Okay.
So we'll come back and do that. But for now, and also we're gonna talk about really cool stuff, and I'm going to give you some really cool new words to learn. And learn about. So yeah, takeaway for this week. Joe, what's this week's takeaway?
Be aware of how you are being.
Be aware. Well said.
Be aware of how you're being. Be aware of how you are standing and talking and moving and waving your arms and smiling and what sort of eye contact you're giving. I would suggest having a bit of a study of people who you think do this well.
Yes.
And then kind of go, they're doing it well. What is it they're actually doing? I'm feeling this person is confident and knows what he's talking about. What's he actually physically doing that's making me think that?
Yeah.
And learn it.
Cultivate a habit of people watching.
Yeah.
Watch people. Watch how they behave. Watch the ones who, and there's some really, really, we're going off on a little bit of a tangent, but there's been some really interesting studies where they've asked criminals to guess who has been a victim of an assault or not, and they've got it right. They've got it spot on every single time, and that's this has got nothing to do with victim blaming at all, because the only person who is ever responsible for an assault is the person who carries out the assault. But the fact that these people could, these criminals could identify the victims was really fascinating. It was really, really interesting, and it was stuff that most of us and quite often they couldn't even put their finger on why, but it would just be something to do with. So watch people, watch how they move.
It's like chicken sexers.
Really?
Yeah, they don't know how they do it.
Do they not?
No. They just go, that one's a hen, and they go, that one's not a hen. But they can't really define what it is. It's a very skilled job.
I didn't know it was a very skilled job. I did not know that. That's really interesting. Okay, so just watch people. Observe them. Observe their behaviour. Have a look at the feelings you get from people just from watching them. Is that a confident person? Is that person maybe feeling upset? Is that person feeling really happy? And just see what you can... And, you might not be right about them all the time, but it's an interesting exercise. And like you said, for people who are really confident and who you are totally convinced by, pay attention to how they move and how they talk and how they hold themselves.
How they have achieved this impression upon you.
Yeah. And just research body language as well. It's really interesting.
Be conscious of it. Be conscious of what the other people are doing. Be conscious of what you're doing.
Yeah. Be conscious of everything all the time.
All the time. Everything.
Yeah.
Easy.
So, any questions? As usual, if anyone has any questions they would like Joe and I to answer.
All we have to do is send us a bottle of gin.
No,
Got space in the cupboard.
no. All you have to do is email me, vicky@vickyfraser.com, with your question, and we will answer it and give you a shout out, or not if you don't want us to. But yeah, drop us a line. This week's unsung hero is my mate Bill Goss, who has been an absolute superstar today. He prints all of my books and he prints all of my client books. And today we had a little bit of a moo moment and it's all fixed and he's just totally unflappable.
Hi, Bill.
Thanks, Bill. Hi.
Nice one.
He's my book printing angel. So coming up next week, we are going to be doing my top 12 body language tips.
Mm-hmm.
And you can pre-register for my brand new book, which is coming out in June. Go to vickyfraser.com/flamingo.
Cool.
You can join Bookaholics Anonymous at vickyfraser.com/book club. That's free. This week we are, this month we're nearly over. In fact, no, by the time this comes out, we've got a week left. We'll be reading Go for No, if you can get hold of it. Apparently nobody can get hold of it. I don't know. If you liked this podcast, go to iTunes and subscribe. Or Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Oh, man, Stitcher's gone through an upgrade. I don't like it.
Oh, well, I use Overcast now.
Okay.
I love Overcast. Another podcast that people might like, 99% Invisible, bloody brilliant.
Okay, cool.
Or share this podcast, my podcast, vickyfraser.com/podcast. Send people there.
Marvellous.
Thank you for listening. And we will be back same time next week.
See ya.
Bye.
Like what you've just heard? Tell your colleagues, tell your friends, send them to www.businessforsuperheroes.com/podcast.